Hello Internet. This isn't going to be a review per se, but I want to talk a little bit about Dead Silence from 2007 that I saw a couple of days ago, and a thing that struck me about it, something very specific. What I want to do first is just talk generally about the film really quickly, then we'll talk about the specific thing that occurred to me as I was mulling it over, the trope of fridging, and maybe what could have been done in the movie. It's a really nice little movie. It's really creepy, and it works on an awful lot of levels. It's from James Wan and Leigh Whannell, the two guys that brought us Saw, and of particular interest now, seeing it about 7 years or so since its release, is you can really see the template in there of Insidious and The Conjuring and stuff like that. Mary Shaw, the villain in this movie, her look, how she appears throughout the movie, as in how she appears, looks, and how she appears in front of people, is really, you can really see a through line between that and some of the ghosts and demons in Insidious. The creepy dolls in this, you can see played through to the Annabelle opening of The Conjuring, and I really like it. If you like really creepy, supernatural, ghosty type stories, and you haven't seen this, if you liked Insidious and if you liked The Conjuring, then I would definitely check this out. You can really see the building blocks of those movies here, and perhaps done with a little bit more integrity. I'm not a big fan of what they seem to be developing into as filmmakers of supernatural horror, which is lots of quiet, bang jump scares and musical cues and what I call someone sitting on the piano to tell you to be scared, which isn't as self-evident here. So you can see them develop in some areas and maybe take retrograde steps in other areas. But if you're interested in those kind of films, it's really interesting to see them taking their first steps towards developing this taste and this aesthetic. Trivia fans, because we got demonic dolls in this, we got creepy ass fucking dolls in this. At the denouement of the film, where we see Mary Shaw's huge collection of 101 dolls, eagle-eyed people amongst you will spot Billy in there, Jigsaw's little puppet doll, which is a nice nod. I think Billy's cropped up one more I think a drawing of Billy is in the background in one of the shots in Insidious as well, so it's a nice little wink to the fans. Now, what's this film about? I'm just going to read it straight off the back of the box because it's going to illustrate the point I want to make perfectly. From the creators of Saw comes a new thriller of relentless terror! Exclamation mark. Ever since Mary Shaw was hunted down and killed, the small town of Ravens Fair has been haunted by horrific deaths. When a local's wife is brutally murdered, he returns home to unravel the terrifying legend of Mary Shaw and the reason why when you see her, you should never scream. The opening sting of the movie sets up a husband and wife who both come from this town, and they're sent a doll in the post, and when we're going to get into spoiler territory now. If you haven't seen the film and you like this kind of movie, check it out. And don't watch the rest, because we're going to be talking about the frickin' ending of the movie here. Watch it and come back, or don't come back. Just as long as you be kind to one another and stay happy. He goes out to get them some food, and while he's away, she's the first victim. She gets knocked off, and that sends him on his journey back home to investigate the legend of Mary Shaw and find out what happened to his wife and why she was killed. And this, my friends, is classic fridging. And fridging, I've got a couple of notes here. So apparently, because I was looking into this, because I'm aware of the phrase and what it means, but didn't know where it came from. So if you'll excuse me, I'll read here. The name of the trope comes from a storyline in Green Lantern comic, believe it or not, where a villain, Major Force, leaves the corpse of Kyle Rayner's girlfriend, Alexandra DeWitt, literally stuffed into a refrigerator for him to find. Fridging has now become a term that oftentimes it's a sign of lazy writing, where you get your hero or your protagonist's partner, best friend, girlfriend, wife to be attacked, raped, beaten up, usually killed, to give our hero the motivation to do what the story needs them to do. More often than not, the character that gets fridged is a wife and girlfriend. If you take a few minutes to think about films and TV shows, you will start realising that this crops up all too often. It is lazy. It is predominantly female characters that this happens to, and cumulatively, and maybe unintentionally, but when you see it time and time and time and time again, it kind of reinforces the idea that female characters are just there to be prizes to be won or saved by the male character, or to be avenged, or the reasons that the male character then goes on to have the adventure or the journey that this particular story wants to tell. At the very end of this story, our main character, Ryan Quanten, who you will recognise as Jason Stackhouse from the True Blood TV series, asks Mary Shaw, "Why did you kill my wife?" Now, one of the things that was bothering me after I'd seen the film is that even though his wife is killed quite horrifically right at the start of the movie, he doesn't ever really act like a bereaved husband who's discovered the corpse of his wife. And at first I was blaming the actor and thinking that his range wasn't that good, but I realised that that was maybe being a little unfair to him. The script never really calls for him to be grieving or particularly upset by the murder of his wife, because she's a plot device. The legend of Mary Shaw, the reason she's killing people is she was a ventriloquist and a child. She never had any children, so her puppets, her dolls, were her children to her, and she was very successful. But at one theatre showing, I think it was in the 1920s, a kid calls her out. I can see her lips moving in the theatre, and then that kid goes missing. The townsfolk believe that she was responsible. They were correct, but what they did was they attacked her. They tore her throat out so she no longer had a voice, so she could no longer do the act. And when she died, she swore vengeance on all the people, the men that had done this to her. And as we learn in the film, then all those men died, and then all their wives died, and then all their children died, and grandchildren, and so on. Any one of the bloodlines of the people that killed her, she's now killing. And so if you see her and you scream, then she can kill you. She takes your tongue and she steals your voice as well, which leads to some cool plot devices in the movie where with phone calls and the like. Anyway, I'm getting off the topic because this is going to be a short video. Ryan Quanten's character Jamie asks her at the end, "Why did you kill my wife?" And she says, "Because you're not the last Ashen," that's his family name. "The last Ashen was inside of her." So she was pregnant with the next member of the bloodline, so that's why she was killed. And that's why her murder had to be investigated, and that's why she has to be avenged. Blah, 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 blah. She was fridged. She was stuck in the fridge. She was created to die so the male character could have something to do. Now, don't think I'm particularly having a go at Leigh Whannell and James Wan here. It's just that this is the movie that made me think about this. It's prevalent all over the place. But rather than just bitching about it in my head, I thought, well, what could have been done different? So just have a think on this possible way, with just a little gender swap, the film could have been slightly different. And it wouldn't have taken much of a rewrite at all. Say it's the husband that gets killed at the start, because they both come from the same town, so she would have had to have gone back to the same town. and she would have had to have looked into the legend. So everything could have played out in the movie exactly as it already plays out, and at the very end she could have asked Mary Shaw, "Why did you kill my husband?" And Mary Shaw could have told her, "Because he's no longer the last of the Ashens. You're carrying the last of the Ashen line inside of you." Wouldn't that have been creepier? If Mary Shaw kills all the bloodlines of all the families that were involved, then her revenge is over. And what does she do then? Does she move on to peace, to hell, to whatever? But there's no more curse. Wouldn't it be so much creepier to learn that she's got her supernatural spider web out there following all of the descendants of the bloodline, and he was the last, so she couldn't touch him until he was going to have a child, so that he could then kill her and then wait for the child to be born and grow up and have more children, and the curse could continue and spread, and her curse and her revenge would never ever ever end. Wouldn't that have been creepy? Wouldn't that have been excellent? We would have had a female protagonist doing exactly the same thing as the male protagonist had done. It doesn't matter one jot whether the person we're following in this film is male or female. So with a very, very minimal change, killing the husband instead of the wife, we could have had an extra flavour and an extra dimension to the horrific, from beyond the grave revenge that our villain was meting out, with the understanding that it would never stop. Because out there, it's not just this family, out there are other people who have moved away, who are getting married, who are having kids, and then getting bumped off, and those kids will have other kids, and it will spread and spread, and it will never ever end. And I just think that would have been awesome. With just a little twist, just a tiny little bit of work, we could have gone from lazily killing a wife to give the man something to do, to adding another dimension of horror to the curse of the villain in the movie. I really love this movie, don't get me wrong. So I don't want to come across like I'm specifically attacking this. This trope is prevalent everywhere, and if it's just a shortcut to get your hero to do things, maybe it's worth taking a little bit of time out to think either how you can get them where you want them to be without having a character that purely exists just to be killed, and it's normally a woman. And maybe if you spend that little extra time, because I've only been thinking about this for a few hours, mulling it over while I've been doing other things, and I think the alternative I came up with is just a little bit better. You can maybe come up with things that you haven't seen before that are more interesting, rather than just accepting that one character has to die at the start of a movie for another character to go on and do things. It's not the end of the world. Doesn't make these guys bad people at all. And I'm not prescribing any motive behind their script writing at all. Don't get me wrong. I actually think these guys have got a lot to offer the horror genre. I don't like everything they do. I don't like some of the decisions they make. But they're out there, and they're trying to do intelligent stuff, and I applaud them for it. Just next time you watch your movies, just see how many characters get fridged, and have a little see at how many of them are women. And maybe, if you really, really want to, if it starts to bug you, think about ways you could have told the same story without having to kill a woman off at the start to make it all happen.